Well, guys, it is New Year's Eve, and wow, what a fucking wild year 2013 has been for this series. And as has been the tradition on this channel for a couple of years now, it is now time for us to look back and try to figure out what exactly were the best movies I covered this year. And I'm going to tell you guys, it took me a whole lot of pondering and soul searching to whittle down all those awesome movies down to 5. But I am proud of these 5. And now it's time for us to count them down. Yes, guys, it is time to check out the top 5 reaction and review movies of 2013. Number 5. Oh man, guys. Number 5 is a dark superhero dramedy that took me by absolute surprise. I'm talking, of course, about Defendor. I'm going to tell you guys, when I was first finding like ads and trailers for this, not a single one even bothered to inform the viewer that this film is, first of all, a dramedy, because every single ad I saw was trying to play it up as if it were a straight up like comedy. But also none of those ads really showed you how dark this story got. And I absolutely loved it. This thing I genuinely thought was going to essentially just be like a ghetto, like Batman, wound up essentially being Kick-Ass, only far, far more realistic. And believe me, guys, if you are a fan of superhero films, you owe it to yourself to watch this thing. I absolutely adored it, and you can tell I still have the DVD for it. It's because I can't find the Blu-ray of it at any price that I personally would call reasonable. Apparently this thing is out of print on Blu-ray. So hopefully I'll be able to find a copy soon, and then this thing will have a spot on in my Blu-ray collection instead of in my small and rather dwindling DVD collection. But anyway, Defendor comes in at number 5. I loved this movie. Now we are going to continue the trend of kind of sort of superhero films with number 4, a found footage film that I honestly was not expecting. I was not expecting it to be as good as it turned out to be, and that movie was Chronicle. My God, guys. Chronicle, I genuinely just sort of thought this thing was going to be just some bland, half-assed found footage thing, and it wound up taking me by absolute surprise. I was not expecting the story to be this interesting, or the characters to be this deep. I was not expecting the special effects to be this absolutely fantastic. This thing, guys, just stunned me, and I have since watched it a couple more times. It is fucking beautiful. This thing is the sort of film that almost every other found footage film should dream of being. So perhaps maybe if people would start doing stuff similar to this instead of doing more and more half-assed ghost story paranormal things, then perhaps maybe the found footage genre would be taken a little bit more seriously. But hey, so far Chronicle is the only found footage film of its kind. It is absolutely beautiful, amazing, and badass, and it comes in at number 4. Number 3 is a Japanese animated film that took years to make, and oh man, it shows. It is one of the most visually stunning movies I have ever seen. That movie is Redline. Oh man. Guys, I am going to tell you right now, I do remember seeing a trailer for this once, and I still do not remember where in the hell I saw the trailer. I just remember that the trailer, it left me absolutely stunned by just how beautiful the fucking animation was on this thing. And then when I finally had the chance to watch it, the story blew me away. But see, then again, that's because I am one of those guys who, when I was a kid, I watched a whole lot of Wacky Races and fucking Star Wars. This thing's basically what happens if you take Wacky Races and Star Wars and you basically toss them into a blender. You kind of get Redline, and it is amazing. Now, I do happen to remember I mentioned that the English dub on this occasionally gets a, like a little bit weak, but believe me, everything else in this thing totally makes up for it. If you guys have not watched this thing yet, as with the rest of the top 5, you totally need to. This movie was fantastic from top to bottom, and it is probably one of the best Japanese animated movies I've watched in years. This thing is funny. This thing is creative, original. I loved this thing, and it comes in at number 3. Number 2 is a movie that I had high expectations for, and it far surpassed those, and it's also from one of my favorite directors of all time. I am, of course, talking about Django Unchained, and I remember when I first covered this movie, I said that it became, at that point, Quentin Tarantino's best work ever, and I still stand by that. This is the greatest thing Quentin Tarantino has ever made. This not only, to me, is his best work ever, it's also the best Western I have ever seen. Granted, I honestly am not the kind of guy who sits down and watches a ton of Westerns, but this thing still far surpasses every other Western I have ever laid eyes on. This movie is fantastic from top to bottom. We have an awesome story. We have badass characters. We have fantastic acting. We have, as is normal with Quentin Tarantino movies, a soundtrack that is beyond awesome. This thing has everything you could possibly want and more. Django Unchained is a certifiable classic, and you owe it to yourself to give this thing a watch at least once. Now, the number 1 movie is one that, honestly, I was really shocked at just how sharp and witty and funny it was when I gave it a watch. That movie is Iron Sky. I'm going to tell you guys right now, when I first saw a couple of ads for this, I could kind of tell that they were shooting for a comedy. I had no earthly clue this thing was going to be a sharp, biting satire that is witty, clever, funny, and absolutely fucking amazing. I loved every second of Iron Sky, and if you guys want to know how awesome this movie was, I first watched it on Netflix. The movie was only about halfway done, and I mentioned this in the video, that while I was watching the movie, I had to jump onto Amazon, and I bought the Blu-ray I'm holding in my hands right now. I have since watched this thing at least 5 more times. It is that absolutely amazing. This is by far the best movie I covered in 2013, and my god, guys, I would also like to state with this one, special effects. This thing here was made on a very low budget. It has some of the best special effects you will ever see on a low budget. The only movie which is able to do better special effects on a low budget was District 9, but this thing was still absolutely mind-blowing in terms of special effects, writing, characters. This thing had it all. And yes, guys, there it is. Right there is the top 5 from last year, and once more, it took me a lot of pondering to whittle it down to these 5, and you know what? I stand by these. In fact, actually, I'm probably gonna have to go and give Iron, Sky another, viewing once I'm, done filming this. So yes, guys, that is it. There was the best of 2013, and hopefully we will see even better movies in 2014. And speaking of 2014, tomorrow, January 1st, 2014, we're going to be taking a look at the flip side of this coin as I go through the absolute septic, tank of garbage I covered last year, and find the 5 worst movies I reviewed. Oh god, I have to go and relive those awful memories. But we are not worrying about that until tomorrow. So yes, guys, until next time, take care, and a happy new year to everyone out there. Peace.